For today's Let's Catch Up on the World and Learn Something session, we're going to talk about one of the first articles on the website of James Bartley. You can see the address up here, theuniversalseduction.com, Bartley, and you don't need to follow the rest, just you look on the side and there's some links, and the one I've chosen was Interview with the Male Abductee About Reptilians and Hybrids, right here. Now, it's basically about a man who was interviewed because he has seen some things and he remembers. And so we're just going to skim through because I really recommend that you go to James Bartley's website and read it for yourself. And it's just important that you soak this up. According to this gentleman, who is known as PR, he says things like the reptilians view humans as food, slaves, breeding stock, property. Basically, we're livestock and pets, okay? The part that I want to react to in this segment, as I described above, they feed on human life force energy. As hard as it may be to believe, they put their hands on the body area they want to feed on and then siphon off the energy in a vampiristic fashion. The reptilians and their hybrids directly feed on their victims because it gives them a bigger rush than consuming energy obtained from the second method described below. They also force the abductee to experience certain emotions such as fear. They can directly feed on the abductee. The same thing is true for sex. They will torture their victims to put the abductee in a desired state. They will torture, forcibly sexually stimulate, and mind control their victim in order to put the abductee in the desired state. They also have chambers. This is the important part. They also have chambers in the form of transparent rectangular boxes. The abductee is placed in the chamber. Then some kind of electronic equipment and machinery are activated. The abductee's life force is then extracted and transferred into storage containers. They also extract biological tissues and fluids. And this is a very, very important and good article that actually confirms a lot of stuff that I myself already knew, which is another reason why I'm already, which is one reason why I am recommending it. So, my reaction that it made me think of is actually a story I have told many times to a lot of people personally that I have never really put out publicly, mostly because I didn't think it was, important. It happened, the night of April 6th turning into April 7th, 1992. I remember that it was narrated, and it opened up on a scene and it had like trees, and there was a cliff, and beyond it was the ocean. So you're looking at it through the trees like you're looking at a cinematic movie, and you know how they'll open up?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is how the scene of the story opened up, okay? And it's perfectly serene, and I think I need to color the parts so you can tell what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
So you had like your serene scene and your happy trees. It's really funny that of all the things that I can draw, and I can draw really good, I try to draw this story and I can't.
Weird.
I know, it's very frustrating that the art here sucks, knowing I can draw better than this.
Yeah,
and yet
this looks like something I would have done.
I cannot draw this story. Okay. This is a fallen log, people. And this is a frog. Wait. That's a frog. And then down comes the ship. And it was a big deal about this ship. I can still remember listening to it hum. And it looked like a clamshell. Like one of those beautiful, with they call them lion's paws.
Yeah.
It looked like a lion's paw clamshell.
The one that Venus, or I think it's Venus, the picture of Venus is standing in.
Yeah, but this was, and it had these, if you look at it, see the nodules?
Yeah.
You like these parts right here.
Uh-huh.
Well, they were clear bubbles. So you had the lion's paw, but there were these clear bubbles where it was a lion's paw. It was very plainly made to look like a lion's paw.
Huh.
So okay, and then you have and it was golden. I mean, there is no getting around it. That bitch was gold. If I can get it to be gold. It was so golden. And you know what's really sad here as I'm sitting here remembering this lion's paw ship, and that's the best I can cough out. Yeah. So it came down and it hovered, and you could hear it hum.
Huh.
I still remember the hum, and I was standing in the dream as an observer. At first, I was an observer over here to the side because I just happened to be there when it came down. So it came down and it hovered, and when I looked at it, I knew right away it was dangerous, so I ran off, right? This is the terrain that I knew in my head, okay? Cliffside, and I was pretty sure I was somewhere like over in Europe or someplace. I knew in the dream that this doesn't exist anymore because it would be moors now and stuff. It was like in the Ireland, area. Over here was a village. Okay? It was a very small village. It had maybe 30 people max. It was a real village, okay? And the protagonist, whose head I had started off in, lived through a little trail here, all by himself over here, because he wasn't wanted. It was really important that he was an outcast. It made him vulnerable. So like there's all these, I'm going to color the trails red. There were trails from where the people would go and berry hunt and live and walk around the way the early people used to do, And the ship had hovered right here over the water.
Okay.
Okay, and there was this chick here. Hi, I'm a chick. And the guy lived here, and he was a hunchback. I am a hunchback. Okay, and this is our protagonist here. This is who I was originally starting the story in. Now, what's really scary is it was a beam ship, but it was clamshelled. Okay, there's no way I can draw this ship. I would love to be able to draw this ship. Now, these globes on it, the little globes, they weren't. They looked like they were just part of the outside. They weren't like windows. They were just pockets of round, bubbled out glass. Then outside of this golden ship, she came out to the top, up here. This is the exit hatch, was up here. Okay. She was really pretty. And remember, I'm having this narrated to me. So I didn't need to get told that she was the captain, but because you kind of knew by the way she exited. I wasn't really allowed to see her face, so I'm going to guess. Not that it matters because of my style pretty much covers just about everybody in the universe. But, starting to look familiar yet?
Yeah.
Like a certain painting you brought up, maybe?
Yeah.
And she knew she was pretty, too. She relied on it. And this wasn't a glamour, which is, people call it shape-shifting, but it's not. It's a glamour. That's the old word because they haven't really shape-shifted. They have fooled your mind, and that's why it's a glamour. But this wasn't a glamour. She really was a pale, blonde-haired, pretty. And her hair was beautiful, too. I'm going to try. I think I can at least imitate the color. I mean, it was very pale. And I still remember how her hair shimmered in the sun. I mean, it was like pale gold, like what you would buy for a wedding ring. It was beautiful hair. And it was like, you could tell it was really fine. I'm talking really fine hair, which I'm trying my hardest, and I'm not able to imitate it. God knows I can imitate her on everything else.
Yeah.
I do remember she was wearing a jumpsuit. I just don't remember the jumpsuit. It's been too many years. So I named her Titania because the narrator made it a very big point that at the time we didn't call them the names that we call them today. We were not calling her a Nordic or assuming she was a reptilian. Very clearly, she was one of the sky people. Very important, from the stars. And I can remember at the time, I right afterwards I got on the internet because that was back when the internet was still good, and looked it up. And People from the Stars is actually a direct translation of the To the Didonon.
Yes.
Yes.
she was an elf, a Nordic, stepping out of a clamshell made of gold. And she had two dudes with her. I don't remember what they were called. So here's her two dudes. Dude one, thing two. I was told that the ship was very low on power. They were basically almost out of gas, and they had come down seeking fuel. All right, and so they had these sky bikes, and I barely remember the sky bikes because every time I saw one, I was like way out of their range to not get noticed. It was almost as if, you know. So I barely remember the sky bikes. I did not know if I've got the handles right. God knows I have seen the same thing in many science fiction movies, as have you. So, you know, but they were basically riding them all over the trails, and she's like, wait, here she is on her sky bike. And they came across the dude, and they were like, oh, hello, and he was like, oh, you know, and he ran because, oh my God, everybody knew to stay away from them. The whole village knew that, you know, these guys were dangerous. And even though he was an outcast, you know, he knew. So he ran. That was their first meeting. And but she kept chasing him. And so she would, like, go to his door at night and leave gifts and food, and just decided, you know, I want to be your friend. She was totally all up on him, you know, let's be friends. And he was doing his best to stay away, but he, you know, and he had a friend, right, and who lived in the village, and he really, really liked her. But, you know, he was a hunchback. They were friends. Dang, I wish this thing would have behaved. Okay. So she's like trying to be friends, and it's kind of interesting because her underlings were like, no way. And he was like, no, leave me alone. And she kept bugging him, and she left. The only gifts I remember was she left him a bottle of something to drink one night, and he threw it away. And then the other night she left him some clothes, some new clothes. And he was like, get away from me. And he would, like, lock the door in his little, and I still remember his little itty bitty hovel. I'll still remember, like, here's the hovel. And there was a bed, and he had, like, a fireplace and a little itty bitty table, and that was his house. Just like they really did, because you didn't need a lot back then. And there was, like, you know, and his friend knew something was going on, and when she found out that the clamshell was nearby, she was really alarmed and told everybody, and everybody started staying home and not going out anywhere. And so she was checking up on him a lot, and she was begging him, don't listen to them. I know what they're up to, you know, please don't, you know. And he was down with it. And then it cut, and there was this scene where her underlings, I guess he was like a second in command, were like, don't do him. We don't want him. Who do you think you are? She's like, but he's perfect, he's innocent, he's young, he's great, he can save us. And they were like, no, don't. And so finally but she blew them off, and she was like, don't you want to be friends? Let's call him Eber, because that's the name I've been calling him all these years. She's like, Eber, help us. I can never draw Eber, so we'll just do this. It's like, save us. You're our only. She literally gave him the save us speech. You're our only hope. That so many people say they're told that, you know, our DNA is used to save them. Our DNA is there just to repopulate the universe. Our DNA is there for this. Our DNA is there for that. And she's like, oh gosh, please. And then she was all, you know, she did. She promised that she would make him pretty and make him not a hunchback, and that he would return to his people a hero. And so he went for it. And they shut themselves up in her and her two underlings shut themselves up in his house overnight. And the next day when he emerged, he was fucking drop dead gorgeous. He was pretty. I mean, they had really, really changed him up and worked on him and fixed his body. And they got him on the scooters with them, and he rode behind one of them, and they carried him back to the ship. And here's the important part. I mean, it's just really important to know how they work you, the whole story. The whole point of the story was, one, it was a good story, but two, it was to show you how they work you over, how people are fooled by them with their "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, your only hope" crap. But they got to the ship, and they were in a hurry because the ship, you could hear it. You could hear how it was not doing well. And so they put him on one of the globes here. They actually put him inside. And there was a human-sized indentation that he fit in perfectly. There was a groove, and it went around him. And they were like, they told him, this is where you're going to ride. Right? Meanwhile, she's going, ha, 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 you know, ha, 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 I have gotten us another one, or whatever. She was like, all right, let's fire up the ship, we have to go, you know, and they're putting him in here. And then I got to see what happens to you, down to the molecular level when you get put in that thing. Okay, they literally, like, yeah, they like, see how that's all grainy? That's what happened to his body.
Wow.
Like, he literally broke up into a million pieces, and then he was gone. Because he was literally disintegrated and devoured by the ship and used as a white liquid. And he went through, and it was, here's the globe. And then there were, like, all over the ship, it was like a big grid board, like a motherboard. And he was literally dispersed through the ship because the ship had veins, like blood veins for us, but for him, you know what I'm saying? And they were symmetrical, they weren't like ours, but,
Yeah.
and it looked like a motherboard, and it was all over the place, and he was literally dispersed through the entire ship.
Wow.
Okay, and that's how the ship was powered. It sounded better. And I still remember the controls because there was a grid here monitoring the energy source, and it just happened to be person-shaped, which means that they needed people. And the technician's like, dude, something's wrong, right? See, I'm serious. I was standing on the cliff because, you know, I was now the girl who we're going to call Wilhelmina. And I'm standing there, and I'm upset because Eber was gone, and I knew what had happened. In fact, it was common knowledge. Somehow it had leaked out what they did to you. And so I'm up there upset watching the ship get ready to take off, and then it just went kaboom out of nowhere. I mean, I got to see the technician had long enough to say there's a problem. And the reason why is, and it goes back to Angry 1 and Angry 2, and the captain, and the argument they had. In order to be appropriate as an energy source, you have to, one, be pure. No bad thoughts. No, a higher energy resonation. You know, meditation, higher resonance, all that stuff. Yes and no, because, you know, but yeah, all the things that we're getting told to do, you had to be that. But number two, you had to have a good body. So although Eber matched this one, he failed on that one. And the thing is, and it was really cool when it blew up because I got to see what happened. Like, here's the human grid on the dashboard. And it was beep, 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 because there had been just a tiny bit of DNA. This one thing was off, and it caused a conflict. That's how fragile their machines are. But that was told to me. And then the next day when I got up, it was on the news that Asimov had passed away. But the whole thing was narrated to me in a man's voice. And tell me that doesn't sound like a story Asimov would tell.
Yeah.
So I can't say that Asimov gave this to me so much as it is kind of an interesting quinky dink. I didn't understand it. It's like 1992 or 8. So I wrote the story out, and nobody would publish it. And this is whenever I put it out, and now it's in a different book entirely. But this is whenever I put it out, and nobody would publish it, and it was probably the first thing I saw published. You know, so being given that story put me on a path a lot of stuff, but it's a very, very, very important story as far as knowing how they work. And so, yeah. So basically, go back, read this article, guys. Interview with a male abductee about reptilians and hybrids, because it's got some pretty good information. James Bartley.